Hey everybody, in today's episode, it's myself, Benjamin B, and Dr. T. Hey, in today's episode, what we're going to be discussing is the Family Reconnect Program that we have launching on June 3rd. We're talking about the nuts and bolts of this program, what it's going to consist of, and hopefully it's something that is of interest to you. But before we get into today's episode, we do got to talk about today's sponsor, SoberLink. SoberLink is awesome. They've come alongside us and just want to equip you with more tools for your sobriety, or maybe it's for a loved one's sobriety. Now, there's a few features that I do want to discuss. Number one, it's tamper-proof. Number two, it's got facial recognition. Okay, so I can't just pass the breathalyzer off to Ben and say, hey, will you blow in this thing for me? It doesn't work that way. Number three, it has scheduled test times. You can set it up for morning, lunchtime, dinner time, whatever is best for you. What else is cool about this is you could set it up to where the results go to an accountability partner, maybe a sponsor, maybe your therapist, maybe a trusted family member. That is all something that you're going to decide on the front end. It's super cool. Now, it does not take the place of Alcoholics Anonymous. It does not take the place of addiction treatment, but it is a tool that you can utilize. Maybe you're coming out of treatment and you're transitioning back into the workplace. SoberLink will be perfect for you. Now, SoberLink, they're gracious enough to give you 50% off of your first device. Now, how do you get that? You go to soberlink.com/RRT. Again, it's soberlink.com/RRT to get 50% off of your first device. Enjoy the show. Yeah, my eyes hurt this morning, T.
Oh, your eyes hurt.
They were burning.
Poor little baby.
I was crying last night. Woke up this morning, my eyes burned.
Why were you crying?
I was just kidding.
Oh, I'm like, geez.
Yeah. Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I am your host, Tom Conrad. In today's episode, we've got Benjamin B.
What's happening, everyone?
And we've got Dr. T.
Hello, everyone.
Why do you make that face?
I was singing with you.
Yeah.
Oh, first things first. Thank you for tuning in on the podcast app, whichever one that you choose to use. And thank you for watching on YouTube. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us. info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message, right, peeps?
Messy.
That's right.
Messy.
Yeah.
You ever go down to Miami and watch the soccer games?
Back in the day, it's been a real long time.
No, like since Messi's been playing.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No.
Supposedly it's really fun. What about you, T?
What made you think of that?
Because he just said
With your-
messy.
Oh, ADHD
Yeah.
brain.
Yeah. Oh, my phone dung. Let me.
Diego Maradona still played for Argentina the last time I think I was in Miami watching a game.
I don't know who that is. I don't
Yeah.
know anything about soccer.
Yeah, Diego Maradona.
Yeah.
He's a man.
He is, you know?
No.
He is, like, arguably the best soccer player ever.
Really?
I mean, he's up there. Pele, Maradona, Messi.
Okay. Nice.
He's one of the big top five, probably.
Sweet. That's good to know. Fun facts with Ben Bueno.
Yeah.
All right, so here we are. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing the Family Reconnect Program that we have launching on June 3rd. So, first, if this is something that you're interested in, and gauge your interest after this episode, you go to realrecoverytalk.com/FRC. Okay, and so basically, what's happening is you're going to join a wait list, and over the weeks, we're going to be introducing what this program is consisting of, and also just preparing you for June 3rd. Did I say January 3rd?
No, I thought you said June 3rd.
Okay, yeah, June 3rd. But the wait list, basically for us, it's to gauge how many people are going to be involved so we can adjust accordingly however we need to. And so that is what we're discussing today, kind of what you get with it, the purpose behind it, what our vision for it is, and go from there. And hopefully, it's something that you can find some interest in and join us. I think we tried releasing this maybe a year and a half ago, and I just don't think we were ready. We didn't have the right people in place, and we didn't really know what we were doing. But we're in a much different spot now. And I will say this. We, as Rural Recovery Talk, we've never once asked for a penny from anybody in terms of anything. And over the last month is really when we started asking for money. And it's always been an awkward type thing for us, I think, asking for money, more for Ben than it is me. I have no problem asking for money, but we've wanted to do this podcast for so long and give people education and insight into addiction and, really help families and loved ones navigate addiction. And I feel like we've done a good job of that over the years. And so, if anything, if you are in a position to where you could benefit from this and you would like to support us financially to be able to continue to do this stuff, then please join. And because, we do. And listen, we're all transparent here. We have money going out for this podcast in multiple areas. And, it's time for us to start bringing some money in. So if you want to support us, again, it's ruralrecoverytalk.com/FRC. Join the wait list, and June 3rd it starts. So who wants to start out of you two to really just give us an idea of what this is?
You want to go?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'll go.
Go for it.
So the program is for family members, loved ones, with someone who is either in any stage of addiction, whether it's they're actively using, maybe they're in treatment, or even post-treatment. And because not a lot of treatment facilities offer family programs as well, so it'd be really good to also have that post-treatment knowledge of all of this to help. It's more to educate and help people help themselves while they're navigating the process.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And regardless of where somebody may be in their situation, kind of like you were saying, they might be in treatment. It might be pre-treatment. It might be they're not even contemplating treatment yet, an active addiction. The idea behind it is to be able to give you the opportunity to give insight on your specific situations, get the feedback, get the time with us to look at each individual case, so to speak, and come together as a whole. Because it doesn't matter where you're at in this process. I mean, maybe you have a kid that's been to treatment 15 times and they're relapsing every single time after treatment. And maybe what we can help you focus on is getting you healthy, or, giving you direction to guide your loved one towards getting help, the right steps there. What part do you play, et cetera, et cetera. And we're going to break that down over the course of several weeks.
Yeah, one of the things, and I oftentimes have said this on the podcast, when people like Ben and myself go into treatment, all efforts go towards people like us.
Mm-hmm.
From medical, right, Tambini? Medical, I mean, clinical, you got the therapists working directly with the client, case managers working directly with the client, all the operations staff working directly with the client, and family members are just kind of left to figure it out, per se. Go ahead.
Let me give a real example, because this happens literally all the time, and this is part of our experience. What I think, and I take a lot of pride in what we do, and I think we're good at, is giving families guidance. And just a really easy example, I helped get a guy into detox the other day, and mom, I guess they went quiet on mom. And mom's like, what the heck is going on? Calling me, like, looking for guidance, and me being able to guide, like, hey, we'll take these steps. These are the questions you're going to ask. What should your expectations be? What do you really need to know? Are you trying to control the situation? Do you need to let this go? And just navigating that. But the reality of the situation is so many of the calls that I get from parents is they're like, what is going on? What do I do right now?
Mm-hmm.
And when it's in that real time, it's being able to get that guidance so you don't, for lack of a better way to put it, screw things up. You don't want to accidentally, unintentionally throw a wrench in your loved one's treatment process or intervention or whatever the case may be. Post-treatment, maybe they're doing really well in sober living right now and they've got, 9 months under their belt, and something comes up and you need to know how to handle it. Parents are very oftentimes lost and worried because getting your loved one, say for instance, into an intervention and in treatment is not the end of this. Within their first couple years of sobriety, you're going to be running into tons of situations. I don't think it was until I had 5 years of sobriety that my mom finally looked at me and she's like, okay, I think you got this now.
Yeah, she could finally breathe.
Yeah.
You know, I had an interesting conversation this morning with a lady, and I could say her first name. She listens, Alyssa. And she's in a situation with a loved one of hers, and she scheduled a consultation call. And if you want to do that, by the way, you can go to realrecoverytalk.com and schedule a consultation call with us. We try to keep them 10, 15 minutes. You can give us kind of your situation and we can help navigate it with you. But at any rate, we had this conversation and the fear inside of her. So I'll give you the 2-minute version of what's going on. Her son has been in and out of a few treatment centers here and just hasn't been able to stay sober and is currently living with her. And he's a very angry individual, come to find out. And she's a single mom. She did the best she could with what she had to raise him. She's taken on a lot of guilt and shame about the situation that she's in now. And so basically we spoke and she was essentially asking for permission or reassurance that sending him out of state for treatment is a good thing to do. And I said, when this call is over, you need to be looking at airline tickets to get him out of here. Because in a little, not backstory, but I had spoken to her well over a year ago about her son. And so we've been on this perpetual cycle, right? But she wanted reassurance. She wanted the confidence in knowing everything is going to be okay. And I told her, I said, Alyssa, with all due respect, this is more of a you issue than it is him. He's 29 years old. He needs to grow up, and you don't need to be in this position. I understand your motherly instincts are coming through. It's clouding your judgment. And anyways, all that to say, it went very well, and it looks like he's going to go to treatment out of state, and hopefully it's good. But I told her, I said, you would be a great person to join this because you have access to us on a weekly basis. And I said, this situation is what it is right now, but it's going to be vastly different 7 days from now.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's going to be vastly different 7 days from then. There's going to be a bunch of twists and a bunch of turns and situations and scenarios that you're going to have to at least relatively be able to navigate, but you can't navigate it on your own. And you have access to, I would call us experts in this field from the medical perspective, from the clinical perspective, from the we have lived it perspective. Obviously, you have access to us, but you have access to all the other people that are in a much different situation that you're currently in. And so, anyways, she is like the ideal person for this, and that's a situation where this is pre-treatment. We're going to help her navigate this. For the person that is in treatment currently, you're going to have to navigate it. And post-treatment, same thing. There's a lot of stuff that goes into this, but in the end, family members and loved ones, they tend to go at it blind.
I always tell people, I tell the addict this, but the same thing goes for the family. Jump in the deep end of the pool the first time. We don't want the loved one to go to treatment, whatever the case may be. They're on their path to getting better. The family doesn't do what they need to do. And I'm not blaming the family for the relapse, so to speak. But if it were to occur, a lot of the times it has to do with the family dynamic. So jumping into this, and when you said parents, loved ones often go into it blind, how many phone calls have we had where somebody's telling us their history with their loved one and they're like, I thought he went away for 30 days and would come back and be all said and done. There is no timeline on this thing. You know, it realistically, like I was saying before, I just want to reiterate, there is going to be probably at least a couple years of adjustment for the family and loved ones to the situation going on. I mean, after treatment, there's sober living, then they get their own apartment, then there's nervousness. Oh my God, I don't know if things are going good at the apartment. What do I do, guys? You know, like, he stopped going to meetings. I tried to get involved with this sponsor, overstepping a boundary there, you know, all kinds of stuff.
They don't know what they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the biggest thing too. I think I encounter with relation to all stages of it is that this is building a community within our community. And this community is going to be so helpful for people in any stage of change, recovery, whatever that looks like, because other people that are in it can help educate and guide each other. And it's a support, and it's a place for them to go to learn about the addiction, the process of the treatment, or even if they don't go to treatment, what does that process look like? How do they navigate that? But support to give them the reinforcement, the reassurance on a continual basis, rather than just being able to call once every, year, and the situation's either gotten worse or, maybe they lost someone from it. So
I like that you use the word navigate too, because one thing that I want to point out as well, if this thing was cookie cutter and black and white, we could print you out, we could write up a black and white manual and say, do this and everything will be okay. What I let families and loved ones know, and addicts as well, is that for us as the professionals here with the experience, we're experts at navigating these situations, each individual situation. You know, we take steps to get us to the next step and then make a decision on which way to go there. There's a lot of forks in the road, and you got to know whether to go left or right. Mm-hmm. And that's what people tend to not understand, is that they're like, what do I do? I said, well, all we can do right now is get to the next step. But they're looking 5 steps ahead. You can't. Mm-hmm. Every single situation is different. And what we're experts at is taking that situation and figuring out which way to adjust and which way to go. And when I do interventions, I tell families that, I'm like, here's what we're doing. When we get to this point, then I'll figure it out. Then when we get to this point, then I'll figure it out. They're like, well, what's after that? I'm like, I don't know yet. And that's where you're going to trust me to be able to tell you what we're going to do when we get there.
Yeah, there's so much that goes into it. I like that you brought up the intervention part, because these interventions, they can happen, they can need to happen at the spur of a moment. Is that the right phrase? Spur of the moment. And because going back to what I was saying before, like, things are going to be different 7 days from now than they currently are. Well, things could be different 7 minutes from now than they currently are. Mm-hmm. And knowing that you're at least on the right trajectory, or you're on the right path, I think is reassuring for parents. And I've got comments and emails and so much stuff from parents and loved ones that have said, I got one on my phone yesterday. This lady, she's dealing with her alcoholic husband, and they have a young child, and it was really cool just her watching just the YouTube and listening to the podcast. And she recently just found us. She said, this is the first time that I actually feel like I have some sort of direction and guidance on what to do. And I'm like, that's the whole purpose behind this, is to give you the resources and the knowledge and the support that you need to be able to navigate this stuff, because it's so tricky. And, families, they rightfully so, they feel like they could fix everything, especially parents. I mean, and I talked about this situation with Hattie and her diabetes. I feel like there are certain stages throughout this process where it's like, I feel like I can regulate her diabetes better than the endocrinologist can. When in reality, that's not true. It's my control issues, you know? And it's the same thing that happens with parents and their children. And being able to relinquish that control and to welcome in help and support and guidance, these outcomes, they can happen so much quicker than what they potentially, sometimes
Endure.
this stuff takes, because they're so wrapped up in control and want to figure it out and to do this and to do that. And I've had conversations with parents for 2, 3, 4 years. And finally, after they're willing to let go of the control and to recognize, okay, this is way out of my scope, we start to see some movement,
The control thing, that drives me crazy. I'll give you an example on that. A couple months ago, maybe 3 months ago, I had a lady reach out to me asking me for detox recommendations. And if I'm putting my name on something and recommending a place, I'm going to make sure it's above board and, the type of place where I can walk into, they know me on a first name basis. I'm saying, yes, this is a good program. This lady called 3 of them, tore them to pieces, called me back, gave me every single reason why none of them are good enough for her kid. Then today is calling me, asking me for that list of detoxes again, because she's still in the same situation 3 months later. And I'm like, and that's, again, like, this kid could be 90 days into his sobriety journey. Instead, he's still where we started off on day 1 of the phone call. He was ready to go to detox.
Yeah.
When she initially called me 3 months ago, and she essentially blocked it for him.
Yeah.
The control thing, like, I know that your intentions are to be looking out for your loved one, but sometimes you can be unintentionally hurting them in the process. And you need people like us to be able to tell you the truth. I'd rather step on your toes than step on your kid's grave.
Love that phrase. That reminds me of, and we're going to move past this. I want to say this though real quick. When COVID started, and our phones are blowing up left and right. And I mean, it's very apparent that people need treatment, and we had treatment for them. But, I had numerous conversations with parents that are like, I can't put my kid on an airplane because they'll contract COVID on the airplane. And it's like, they're shooting heroin in your basement.
Mm-hmm.
There was legit a parent who told me their kid had overdosed twice that month in the basement shooting fentanyl, but she wouldn't put him on a plane to send him to treatment. I'm like, are you kidding me right now?
Yeah, it was crazy. But
Wild.
that goes to show the control. So let's get into the nuts and bolts of what this is going to consist of. Because we spent a lot of time talking about what we want to do or what we have to offer you, but let's talk about what it consists of. So June 3rd, it starts. I believe that's a Tuesday, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And did we solidify the time? Are we doing 6:00 p.m. Eastern?
We can. We didn't solidify.
We were tossing back and forth between 5 and 6, but I think 6 makes the most sense.
Eastern Standard Time.
Eastern Standard Time, yeah. So all you California people, it's going to be 3:00, and for those of you worldwide, I have no idea. So 6:00, June 3rd, Eastern Time. We're going to be meeting every single week, every Tuesday, and we're alternating, right? So week 1, it's going to be the 3 of us, and we're going to do like a kickoff, right? The next week, we're going to have a guest speaker, an expert in the field in some arena. It could be a licensed mental health counselor. It could be a doctor. It could be an attorney that specializes in substance abuse. Every other week, we're going to have a different speaker. Now, obviously, we may have the same speaker twice over the course of months or whatever. But the idea is to get different voices, different perspectives involved in this. So week 1, you got the 3 of us. Week 2, guest speaker. Week 3, you got us. Week 4, guest speaker, so on and so forth, right? So it's alternating. Now, there's also a 12-week curriculum that everybody is going to get with this. And this 12-week curriculum, it can either be self-studied or it could be something that we go along every single every week. And there probably will be a touch point on, because the 12-week curriculum is something that it's a resource for you. We are going to be covering it, but we also want to give all the family members and the loved ones opportunity to talk, ask questions and stuff like that. So the curriculum you will get, and it's each week is themed a different topic, and we can go through them quickly one by one if we want. Week 1 is going to be understanding addiction and how it impacts families. So this is going to be a very nuts and bolts, basic rundown of addiction. Week 2, recognizing codependency and enabling behaviors. We can spend a minute on that. What do you guys got? Recognizing codependency and enabling behaviors.
You want me to give the answers now in a nutshell? Enabling behaviors don't do for them what they can do for themselves. Don't take away their aha moment from them. And a lot of times this goes back to parents don't recognize that most of the time. They can't differentiate the difference between enabling and helping, because they could be literally the same thing. They could be different depending on the timeline. Where are they in the process? What might be enabling in the beginning might be helping later, or vice versa. So help and differentiate those.
Right. And then, so transitioning into week 3, it's going to be how do we actually uphold these boundaries? It's one thing, and Ben, I love how you say this. How do you say it? You say
You always do that to me, and I'm like, I have no idea what I say. I say a lot of things.
Basically, in a nutshell, what it is, a boundary is only as good as it is if you're willing to uphold it. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of walk through with you on how can you actually uphold these boundaries. And a lot of times with that, there's different strategies that you can utilize, but oftentimes I have found in those types of situations, again, they're just looking for permission to set these boundaries. Mm-hmm. They know how to uphold them. It's like, hey, I'm not making your car payment. That's very simple. I just don't go in the online portal and make the car payment. A lot of times they just need permission from us. Hey, that's okay. So the fourth one is going to be setting and upholding boundaries for yourself. This one I think is extremely, extremely important. T, what do you got on that? Setting and upholding boundaries for yourself.
It's really hard to hold yourself accountable. And when you're in the midst of all of this chaos, you're not thinking about what's being said, how it's being said, and how it's being delivered. And if you're unable to uphold your boundaries for yourself and hold yourself accountable, then there can be no self-growth. So It's going to be really teaching people and educating people, what does that look like for you yourself internally? You know, in relation to, you also have those boundaries that we will talk about the week before, setting with your loved one. So those two things have to be differentiated so you know what you're doing in both instances.
Yeah.
Right.
2 sickies don't make a welly.
Right.
In other words, like, despite what your addict alcoholic is doing, you have to get better, because they're not going to get better if you don't.
Yep. The next one is interacting with an addict. What's the proper way to interact with an addict? I can't even tell you how many conversations I've had, and we've talked about this ad nauseum on the podcast. So many times family members and loved ones, they get so emotional when it comes to this, and it just turns into like WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just blaming, pointing fingers.
Yeah, pointing fingers.
You're not going anywhere. You will lose an argument with the drug addict every time. It's like talking to a wall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then we go on to practicing assertive communication and active listening. This is something that is, again, very hard to do for parents and loved ones. So we walk through with you on that. Understanding detachment, its role in recovery. That's very important. Strategies for self-care and reducing stress. A lot of times, again, family members and loved ones, you lose yourself in this whole entire process. Absolutely lose yourself. I can't tell you. You can see the stress on their face. I've had conversations, Zoom calls with parents a year ago, and then I have another call with them 6 months later, and you can see the wear and tear that this is causing them. So we go through that.
Let me throw this in there too. You know, we're talking families and loved ones, but also like this is beneficial for professionals in the field.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we get, what's it called? Compassion fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
And when the taking care of yourself stuff, I have to take a good look at that all the time, because doing this for a living, we can get beat up. And if I don't take the time to take care of myself, so it could go for professionals too in this field.
Yeah, I mean, it could work for a lot of people. It's definitely needed. That's for sure. Understanding resources for your loved one. This is something that I'm very passionate about. There's a lot of BS out there, and we help you navigate that. And that, again, that kind of goes to the conversation I had this morning with Alyssa. I had to tell her it's okay to send your kid up to New Jersey, was where he was potentially going to go. And I had to talk with her through that. And I think that's more what we talk about here. Like, what are the resources out there, no matter the situation? You were going to say something.
I think this is a very appropriate time to mention the Big Book study, because understanding the resources for your addict or alcoholic is very important. Because how oftentimes does an addict or an alcoholic go, I don't fit in 12-step programs. It doesn't work. Well, Monday nights, we're doing our Big Book study. Eric and Tom, they're going through the Big Book. And how many emails have we gotten from parents who aren't addicts and alcoholics that are listening, that are getting an understanding of 12 steps? And the more knowledge that they have at their fingertips on how it actually works, for lack of a better way to put it, when their loved one says, oh, this doesn't work for me, now they're armed with the facts about the program and can say...
They're less easily manipulated when they're being... Right. When the person calls them in treatment, because we see this all the time. This program's doing this. They're not serving me this food. They're making me go to AA, and I don't fit into AA, or they're making me do NA or H&I meetings, and they're just feeding negativity and excuses of why they need to leave the treatment center. And families will fly from across the United States and come swoop up, their loved one like that, without understanding what is H&I, what is what is entailed in AA, what is entailed in NA, what is the programming that they're actually doing. They know nothing. They're still falling prey to this manipulation and playing the game with them. So it enables and empowers them and educates them to be able to have leverage, to have just an open conversation, not even an argument about it.
Knowledge is power, and I love it. It empowers. I love that you said that, because it really does.
All right, let's buzz through these last three. So those were week 1 through 9. Week 10 is the importance of seeking support from Al-Anon and other groups. This is something that, we talk about all the time. We can only do so much. Obviously, this whole program in and of itself is virtual. But there's something to be said about human connection. We're societal creatures. We need to be around other people, especially when we're going through times like this. So that's week 10. Week 11, building and maintaining your long-term plan for success. So this is where, as a group, we kind of come alongside everybody and really help you. Like, what is your plan? Whatever it is, no right or wrong answer, and really walk through that with you. And hey, we kind of like that. Kind of don't like that. Oh, your son just completed 30 days of treatment and wants to come home. Probably not recommended. Stuff like that.
Let me touch on a topic that could come up here too, just to give some insight. For instance, I can speak to my situation. When I got sober, and like I mentioned earlier, my mom finally at 5 years was like, okay, I think you got to. I remember when I had about 3-4 years of sobriety though, my mom was so enveloped in like trying to help me. Like, I was her drug of choice. We talk about that all the time, trying to control, worrying, all that stuff. What happens when your loved one gets sober and stays sober? That's another thing you're going to have to navigate, because how much of your time, energy, and resources went to helping your loved one, and now all of a sudden you've lost your identity. Your identity, whether you like to admit it or not, was constantly chasing your loved one, trying to get them help, trying to fix them. So now you're like, ooh, they're better. And families, loved ones have a tendency to cause disruption because now they've lost their purpose. They don't know what to do with themselves.
Yeah. See that all the time. And then week 12 is helping others and making an impact on your community. And that, I think, is one of the most important, is being able to go out and help other people. It kind of, I mean, that's our 12th step.
It is.
In AA, you know, and there's no reason that family members and loved ones that you shouldn't be able to do that. I mean, Ben, how do you say that? We're uniquely qualified.
Yeah, we're uniquely qualified to help others because of what we've been through.
But the first thing that we have to do is be able to help ourselves.
But if you're still in pain, we brought this up on the grief episode with Prema.
Oh yeah, that hadn't gone out yet, but
it hasn't gone out yet, but it's coming up.
Well, it'll be out by the time this airs.
Yeah. Even if you're in pain, you can still help other people.
Yeah.
I want to throw that out there. That's the power of the 12 step. That's the power of helping others and making an impact on your community.
So I know you guys saw me looking at my screen. That's because we had the curriculum put up on my television so I could see it. My memory isn't that good, so I had to put it up there. So people watching on YouTube are like, he's reading off of something. Yeah, I am. I'm reading off of my list up here on the TV. So anyways, I'm super excited for it. June 3rd.
Also, what it will entail, like going back to the beginning, is just a simplified version of it is, like we said, there's a weekly, what we call a live Q&A, but there is a VIP option that people can sign up for where you can get, it's an hour before the live Q&A where you can just ask us any questions. It's basically an open forum, and anyone that's involved in the VIP program can be a part of it so they can hear what others are asking and talking about, but direct access to us specifically for their situations.
And I'll give a shout out too. We got to give a shout out to Dr. T because she is the only one qualified to help people medically. And I want to give a really good example of this. We just had this, was it earlier this week?
Last week.
It was last week. We had a guy reach out to us who's been on Suboxone for 14 years, I think he said.
No longer, 17, I think.
And has not been able to figure out how to get off of it. First time he's ever talked about it. But for instance, Dr. T won't be your doctor, so to speak. But what she did in this instance was educated this gentleman on options, how to go to his current doctor, what to ask, educated him on Sublocade as an option, and explain the different options, what the process looks like, what concerns might come up, stuff along those lines. But getting that guidance too, because to call it what it is, addiction, there's always, not always, 99% of the time, a co-occurring disorder, some sort of mental health going on. If somebody's physically not running at 100% because alcohol tore their body up or whatever the case may be, you know, you also have Dr. T's expertise and not these two dodo birds right here.
Speak for yourself, dodo bird.
Yeah.
But also it will have, we'll do like a weekly newsletter specific for this program. And in that newsletter, we'll have like what's like a recap, what's coming, an educational portion, whether we recommend a certain book or a certain guide that we think people should read or look into. And then, like we said before, it will have its own private Facebook community that people can become a part of indefinitely. And we hope that it empowers people to speak up, discuss, look for guidance, and create our own little community.
Right. And you remember committing to putting up a research article on the newsletter, right, T?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I don't know how to really, I mean, I know about research articles and research papers and stuff like that, but nowhere like you, T. So T's gonna do that. She's gonna be sharing the up and coming and all that stuff that, you know, research has proven.
Let me touch on this too. I'm making the assumption, but we haven't actually launched this yet, but I've been working in this field long enough that this naturally occurs, and I think it's going to occur in this too, where you're talking about community, for instance. The fact of the matter is, going through this, we are going to build a relationship with you, like a personal relationship. We see it with our clients. We see it with our clients' parents. I mean, we're in touch with families and loved ones of clients that were here years ago. You know, and in fact, we just had a young lady admit today whose family we've been in touch with for, God, 4 or 5 years on a, you know, their loved one came through and now they've been helping, like it's,
Yeah.
but those personal relationships, just as human beings, they organically form and happen and be part of something real special.
Mm-hmm.
There's people that have my cell phone number that, text me, now I'm not saying I'm doing that, but, if I like you enough, maybe I'll give you my cell phone number and we can text back and forth, Right, T?
Right.
Tom does that for a lot more people than I think he leads on.
He does.
I think he's kind of protecting himself right now, but like...
Yeah, he does.
It's fun, though. You know why, though? Because I'm invested in this, as we all are. There's not... And that's the thing. There's not one person that has found us via the podcast that has wanted to speak in some capacity that, like, they email and I'm like, text me. Here's my cell phone number.
Yeah.
Let's set up a time to chat. I would love for you to go to realrecoverytalk.com and schedule it so we can, at least keep things concise.
Organized.
Yeah, organized. So Dr. T over here keeps us organized.
Yeah.
Try to.
But if you're super anti that for any reason, I guess you could email us, info@realrecoverytalk.com. But please don't do that. Just go to realrecoverytalk.com. The website is very self-explanatory. It says right there, schedule a call. And yeah. The other thing I wanted to talk about real quick before we wrap this up is, like, you talked about the intervention piece.
Mm-hmm.
You probably know this by now, but in the event that you don't, we also have Rock Recovery Center here. Now, I'm not saying that we're even pitching anything to do with rock in this program. The reason I bring that up is because we work in the treatment field. We have all worked in the treatment field for a very long time. We know the ins and the outs of it, and we know what place is appropriate for what insurance and no matter what your situation is. All to say, if you're in a situation where you have somebody that is actively using, not only are we going to help you through this situation, but when it comes time for them to get treatment, we can do that. Like, we can navigate that for you, and you can avoid going on Google, and which we just did an episode on this, going on the old Googler and typing in, I need an addiction treatment for my son. Well, you're just going to get bombarded with, the places that have the most money. And, it may or may not be a terrible place. So we can help navigate that with you is what I was trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
So, do we leave anything out?
No.
Mm-mm.
Not that I can think of.
All right. June 3rd. It starts Tuesday, 6:00 p.m. Eastern time. We're ready to go. So again, go to realrecoverytalk.com/FRC /FRC to sign up, and we can gauge interest, and you'll get, we're not going to bombard you with emails, but you will get one on top of the emails that already go out. You will get one each week, kind of just keeping it fresh in your mind. Hey, this is going to be starting, stuff like that. So anything else? Any final thoughts?
Nope.
No, sir.
All right. That is it for this episode of Real Recovery Talk. Thank you for tuning in. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you can always reach us, info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message. That is it. We will see y'all later.